the election night, before I went to bed, I specifically was watching Michigan's numbers, and I'm pretty sure it said, had Trump, Biden, and it had not electoral, it was actual number of votes. And it said Trump was ahead by a certain amount, and it said ballots or votes left to count. And I did the math. I'm like, well, based on these numbers, there's no way Biden can win Michigan. So I'm going to sleep. And then, of course, I woke up the next morning like, what? Does what you said as far as bringing in extra ballots, does that coincide with why I'm thinking that I saw what I saw and then it flipped upside down, basically?
It does. It does. In fact, there were Democratic operatives and politicians that are saying, you got to come in. We need votes bad. And that was Michigan.
Okay.
And so Wayne County is the place where we had footage of vans just showing up at 3:00 in the morning, and they're just unloading boxes of ballots. And we have that. And we saw that presented by the Gateway Pundit and Jim and Joe Hoft. And so there was a phenomenon where absolutely Trump had it in the bag. And in key states like Michigan, it wasn't just Michigan. You had places like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. People were sent home. The voting stopped. That never happens because what they were trying to do was backfill the damage that was done, likely through an algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a way to manipulate the votes through electronic means. But the problem is you have to get a piece of paper into your system in the event that you have an audit. All right. So people were rushing to backfill stuff. That's what we call ballot stuffing, these paper ballots. That's why we had people driving trucks that filled out affidavits about not really knowing what they were doing. They're crossing state lines with ballots, delivering them to centers. And they got wiser for it and they testified to that effect. So that happened. We have thousands upon thousands of affidavits from people that aren't political. They just said, this is what I saw. This is what I heard. This is highly unusual. And when you start getting into the algorithm stuff, it's even scarier because we had people like Dr. Douglas Frank who found out that you can, through a key, once you have the framework of his methodology, you find out that an algorithm was used in every single county, in every single state. And his work's been verified by other mathematicians. Edward Solomon has proven geometrically that some of the stuff that we've seen is mathematically impossible. Lisa Draza-Smith, who's a grid cybersecurity specialist, who is famous for articulating the cruise control theory, sees an algorithm throughout all of these states. And the thing that's really exciting about the work is that it's verifiable. My wife, for instance, is an engineer, but she's not a mathematician on their order, was able to follow the methodologies. And wouldn't you know, she found the key for New Mexico. That's where we live, where you find one figure. And once you find that one number, all of a sudden you can track and know exactly how things played out in New Mexico. You shouldn't be able to do that. But anyone can do it if they've got a basic set of math skills and they have a correct data set or the voter rolls. And that's what people are doing. And so anyone worth their salt, I've sent my experts and their findings to PhD mathematicians. Either they won't touch it because they're scared, but they cannot refute it. And a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about as a law professor, you think that at some point, some big shot law professor would show up and say, David Clements is wrong about what he's saying. Not one person has stood up and challenged me because this is not controversial, what I'm saying. We're talking about basic rules of how you get a piece of evidence in front of a judge or jury. And for whatever reason, all inquiry has been shut down, and we were expected within 24 hours of voting day to believe this message, and that was safest and most secure election in history. And people are starting to see right through it.